So I'm Dan.
And I'm Nick, folks.
And together we form
this crazy dynamo
known as the
Unpanderers. No, sir, we don't pander.
Yeah, especially not to younger viewers.
If you're under 18, please get your waiver signed and come back.
Yeah, go listen to some tinier podcast that doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
We care.
Also, if you're an employer, you cannot use this podcast against me, please. Only because it's for infotainment.
Yeah, it's for fun.
Entertainment purposes only, I believe.
Yeah, nothing can be used against us in a court of law.
Mm-hmm. So what'd you say we do here again?
We like to fit in the groove and just flow. Burst out in conversation.
Let it rip. A couple of old friends just going over some really interesting stuff. So why don't you tune in?
Enjoy.
Thanks, folks.
All right. There we go.
We did it.
We're here. Yeah, I'm Dan.
We're here, folks. I'm Nick.
And we have a special guest. You gotta say
Joanna.
Joanna from...
How crazy is that?
Messed up already.
Yeah, that's okay.
Oh, well. We're going to have to run with it.
Yeah. Joanna from Neuron Air.
Oh,
yeah.
Neuron Air.
Yeah.
There's one episode.
You gotta plug it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta throw a little, we do the Neuron Air thing. I listened to an episode. It's very good.
Actually, when this episode comes out, I think ours might finally launch.
Yeah.
Okay. So it'll be a little
Perfect
like
timing.
you said, little plug, little promo.
Look for it, folks. Today, episode 42. Big moment right here. There's something I was going to say about it, but it's funny.
Huh?
I forget. We're doing an episode on memory and memory loss, I think. Or something like that. I don't know. I always forget how to start these things. I forget everything about it.
Yeah, there's a I forget too. No, there's a rhyme and a reason. So there's a flow.
There is.
So got any clarifications, corrections from last time? When we talked about ourselves? Did we say anything wrong?
I did. I claimed that I was apprehended by law enforcement. This is not true. If my son's listening, anyone in the future or employers listening, I was never apprehended by law enforcement, and I was never given any citations ever here. Sorry, as a clarification. It was a joke. Never got that ticket for inebriation. Didn't happen.
So you didn't go to jail. They put you in the back of the car though, right?
It didn't happen either.
It didn't happen.
Terrible room. No, I did not drink beer in the open, shirtless, and get drunk in public. Didn't happen.
There were no witnesses, right? It never happened.
Right. And if I said it in a podcast, it doesn't mean anything.
It's just if the witnesses are...
Do this? Do what this is?
Oh, you got 40.
Super Bowl beer. I bought this for the Super Bowl, and I never got around to drinking it. And it's been in the fridge for... Well, I can tell you when it expired, March 5th. And we're going to dump it, so why not? You know what I mean?
Special occasion. Doing the podcast. I'm going to see how an expired 40 of Miller High Life tastes. Live action shot. If there are no witnesses remaining, then it never really happened, right?
Tastes like the Super Bowl.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, tastes pretty good as a Eagles fan.
Yeah, good. No. Right here in Philadelphia.
It's all same community.
Your whereabouts?
Suburbs of Philly. I mean, Dan and I grew up
we go way back.
Each other, yeah.
Where I was going to say. I guess what's your background? Because we need to make you legitimate, right?
Yeah.
So what's your history?
Okay, so my background. I have degrees in biomedical engineering, my bachelor's, and then also a master's. Then I was a technician for 5 years in a lab that did research on developmental neuroscience. And so how the brain develops all the way from, we actually did work on stem cells, on embryonic stem cells, to see how the human brain develops. And then I came to Albert Einstein College of Medicine to get a PhD. So now I'm a neuroscience PhD student, and I'll be finishing my 4th year in August. So.
Nice. Qualified.
Yeah.
Definitely qualified. I'm giving the thumbs up. You're already qualified, trust me. Once you said GED or higher, you were ready for the Unpanders. And actually, you have surpassed our expectations, and we're actually pleased to have you here. Yeah, I wasn't sure at first until I heard that. Now I'm sure.
Right. Well, I'm thrilled. I'm happy to be.
It's got to feel real good to say Albert Einstein School of Medicine? Was that the one?
I did notice you didn't.
It
Einstein. Albert Einstein Medicine. I heard it.
Yeah, it sounds good because people know the name, right? Actually, I was a tech at Rockefeller University, which is like, I guess it's higher ranked, I guess, overall for a PhD. It was more esteemed. There's Nobel laureates there, but people haven't heard. I mean, actually, no. They've heard of Rockefellers, obviously, so that's a lot in my mind. Yeah, no, argument doesn't hold. Anyway, but but at least people have heard of Albert Einstein, right? So it's
good guy. He has the crazy hair, right?
You wear Einstein over your T-shirts and stuff and look cool.
So you're currently going there?
Yes.
Yeah, she finishes in August. If you're paying attention,
I was not paying attention.
No, I finished my 4th year in August.
Oh, how many years is a PhD?
Yeah, you don't ask a PhD that.
You just keep going?
Several?
just going.
Okay. Well, good luck.
Yeah, the average is 6 years, but it could be 7, could be 8, and then they kick you out and get the F out.
Are you tired of it yet?
No. I think things are finally starting to kind of come together. So if I'm tired of it, I'm kind of in the wrong job, because this kind of goes for my whole life is basically a permutation of whatever I'm doing now. So. And
then didn't you do like body harvesting or something? When you were lab technician?
Yeah, I spent 3 summers at a human tissue bank.
Wow. Is that like people who have died by accident, or people who have dedicated their bodies to science, or who ends up there?
So people will come to hospitals, and then they will speak to the families and ask if they are willing to donate bone, skin, cartilage.
You ever get a whole cadaver?
And tendons.
You just say the whole thing and not the little checkbox before you even ask all that.
Well, they would give whole arms and whole legs. I mean, I'd walk into the lab and just have a whole human leg just hanging out there, and then people would harvest it. And then they would donate the parts, and then it was really interesting because they would make bone filler, for example. So, like, let's say you broke a bone or you kind of shattered it, and you have all these kind of gaps, right? So then they take bone, they take the cells out of it, right? So you're left with like all the calcium and things like that, all kind of the matrix of it, and then they fill it into your bones, so it's like a bone graft. And you won't reject it because there's no cells or anything.
I was going to say there's no different type of bone or anything. It's just all bone's good. Once it's in, it's.
Yeah, because it's like that matrix is the same, and then the things that would make you reject it are things that would have to do more with your cells, right? So then the immune system would identify it as
blood or something.
Yeah. But then so it's called acellularization. So they take out the cells.
What about animal bones? Is it a different material, or can they do that?
They can do that too. They actually use even pig, pig parts, and I think they were even looking at using pig hearts or cow hearts at some point for people. And I don't know how far they got. Actually, I'm not well versed in that, but you can also do the same thing. Take the cells out, and then what you can do is put your cells back onto that heart. Right. So
it won't get rejected.
Yeah. So then your cells, like you could take stem cells that would make heart muscle, and then put that onto the heart and then implant it into you. You won't reject it. It's just shaped like a different species heart, but it should work just fine if it matches close enough.
So weird, but sounds good.
Yeah. So what are you using to harvest this stuff? You got like a giant needle, like scalpel, a little chainsaw or something? Like, how do you hack the body apart? That's the part I'm curious about.
Yeah, basically, right? And yeah, I don't know.
So that was a yes on all of those?
I mean, not
Whatever,
like
I guess.
not like a proper Home Depot chainsaw, but actually, no. Well,
Certified one.
Medically certified by Dan.
Yeah, when so science is like when you're on the outside, and then when you see it on like CSI and all these things, it looks all fancy and all this crazy equipment, all the colorful liquids and everything. And then you get into the lab, and they're using like
pliers to open a thumb or something, and they're like, "You just got to get it out."
Or like a broom to thirst a broom, and using like the the paper clip, those black clip binder things, to hold shit together, and like just making crap out of anything. Like they're bioengineers, right? So they just made it work. But I was like, wow, this is not what I expected at all. Just
kind of cool.
Yeah, no, it
using
was
what works.
Even more cool, I think, to me after that.
Well, this brings me to the word of the day.
Oh,
it's lethologica.
Lethologica.
Yeah, you guys don't use that in everyday term? Probably says more about you than me. It's another word for tip of the tongue. When something is like, I had a name and I couldn't say it. It was on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, couldn't remember.
In French, you may remember this from Catch-22. It is translated as presque vu, or almost seen. So something is almost there, but you don't quite have it. It's like the opposite of deja vu, where you remember something that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So it's presque vu. You almost remembered something.
Before it
even happened. Mm-hmm. I love that idea. Which ties a little bit into memory. We can move on to.
Sure.
Yeah.
How about falsifying memory? Huh? Anyone know about that?
Falsifying memory? You talking about like hypnosis?
How unreliable it is? No. How unreliable it is and how it changes on that.
Like eyewitnesses in the court?
Oh, eyewitnesses are terrible, terrible, terrible people. Eyewitness testimony should be, is it like 30% effective, I believe? It's like 70% of the time off by, even if it's off by the color of the car or the size of the man or how many people it was in the crowd, they're off like 70% of the time.
Yeah,
that's over half. That's bad.
A lot of the DNA overturns in the past 10 years or so, I think that, the stat was 70% of those that were eyewitnessed were false. The DNA proved that they couldn't be there. And even like last week, there was that one woman who said those two guys that spent 20 years in prison, they didn't really rape me. It never happened. And those guys are like, ooh.
I thought I said that. They were like, I told it, people.
Yeah.
So how is something so important, memory, we use it every day, I believe it pretty much is the main component of our identity, right? Yeah. I mean, because there's the way you look, but your memories are kind of you.
Can I circle back to the...
Go ahead. Sure. I was going to get there.
Yeah, however you want to go. I just want to comment. So they've done So I want to say one thing about why that happens. One is the brain hates a vacuum, right? So the brain hates just like empty space where it doesn't have like a string of things to like a cogent story. And
goes it logically.
Yeah, and so think of like what you're doing right now, right? There's so many things you can be paying attention to. You can be paying attention to smells and sights and sounds and all these different things. But
in this room, right?
Right, and you're not paying attention to the feeling of your clothes until somebody says it, right? But your brain is constantly processing this in the background. And it's not until you sense some kind of change in it that suddenly you're like, oh, I have clothes on, or whatever, or somebody says it. And so you're only able to process some small fraction of this at a time. And
I may have a stat for you.
Naked dreams.
They say short-term memory ranges between 20 and 30 seconds.
Exactly.
And at any time during short-term memory, you're very aware of 6 to 7 to 4 different unique
all the sensory stuff.
Correct.
Right.
But like there's millions of things in the room with you. If you're only really cognizant of 6 of them for 20 seconds at a time, whether it's how loud my voice is, how good looking my hair is. I did get a cut. Thank you for noticing, everyone at home. Like several things like that, where you guys are on the screen, and then like 3 more things, and then I've stopped paying attention to everything on this desk. This Miller High Life, how cold cold and delicious it is.
So you're saying you're ignorant.
Stop processing it.
You're ignorant
I'm
all
ignorant
the time.
of most of the stuff around me because of short-term memory. We don't have room for all that stuff, right?
No.
Yeah, and if you don't commit it, if there's no meaning, then forget it. But so interesting that they've done studies and they've actually tried to implant false memories into people and have succeeded. They've actually succeeded in convincing people that they, when they were 5,
with their lives. No, when they're 5.
Yeah, that like they were lost in a shopping mall or something, and some elderly person brought them back and reunited them with the family, and like a certain percentage of people were just convinced that made sense, right? Like your brain just fills in stuff. I
saw this study, like 80% of people were able to be tricked into believing that something happened, right?
Right.
Okay.
So then you could easily sway people. So back to the eyewitness thing, right? You could kind of lead them to believe with keywords and things like that this happened or that happened.
Exactly. Like lawyers are the bad guys. You've heard it here on the Unpanners first. A lawyer led all these witnesses to believe their own eyewitness testimony, and they are the bad people. So I agree with you.
Yeah, that's not what I said.
Oh, all right. I forgot. My memory.
All my lawyer friends.
All my lawyer friends? Yeah, I'm talking to you. I did derail it. I forgot what the last sentence was going to be.
You don't have the next
Well, no, hold on. I did have something about that, what we were just discussing.
So you're talking about the basis of what makes up a human, and if you have no memory, what is a human then?
Yeah.
I guess your looks might be okay with that, but you
might get by with having no intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, most
thank God I have both. Yeah. No, actually, it was to a little bit of what we were just talking about. So we're being bombarded with sensory stuff at all times, right?
Mm-hmm.
Constantly. Sensory memory discards about 90% of what's hit with it. I don't remember the color of the wall when I turned to my left, and we were just discussing that stuff. Of sensory memory, anything you give attention to falls into short-term memory. That's where most of the now is going on in your brain. I saw this in a really cool graph. I wish I could show you guys, and I almost drew it, but maintenance rehearsal might have been the name of the graph. I don't know. Anyway, your short-term memory is going on right here. That short-term memory stays there, and then if it's unattended, like it's something like I was paying attention to, but the cold of this beverage, if it's not important to me, it'll be lost. But if it is important, or it's tied to a memory or something like that, it gets encoded into long-term memory. So anything in long-term memory does have to pass through short-term memory, they say, which I found interesting.
Did you come across any of the memory tests that have about 20 words in a grid, and it says you have 2 minutes to remember yourself?
Remember everything. How'd you do? I didn't do one.
Well, there's let me see. There's 25, and I got like 7. And it
good,
turns
right?
out, most of them are like random until they say that there's categories, and they organize them by categories. And then the mind does something a little different, where it's not trying to remember the picture, it's trying to remember the category, and then once it can categorize things, it helps a lot for mnemonics.
Now you're talking about connections and mnemonics.
Have you guys, I'm guessing through your research, you've come across those, like the memory championships?
No, I didn't actually. Although that's interesting.
No?
Please, come on, bring us in this memory championships.
So there was this guy who was a journalist, right? And they have memory competitions, and it's basically, they were saying it's like the equivalent of watching a whole bunch of people take the SATs. It's like really boring, but they have like hundreds of numbers or something that they have to memorize within.
What do they do? Numbers or words? That is important. I gotta know.
Huh?
So they
is it always numbers
categories?
Or words, or what is it?
It's a whole bunch. It could be numbers or words or patterns or like decks of cards or something, the order of decks of cards, and like really seemingly just meaningless things. And you would think that these people are actually some kind of savants, right? That they have some amazing memories, but actually, when they were tested, right, that they were put into a lab and tested for memory, they on average don't have much better memory than most people. What they do is they have these mnemonic devices. And have you guys heard of the memory palace?
No.
Okay. This is another strategy that people use to memorize things. And it's very often they say use a house that you're very familiar with, like a childhood home. and let's say you want to remember something that is maybe not that important, right? Like you were saying, but you need to know, like for medical school or something, right? So maybe your specialty won't be something with a renal system, but you need to learn it to pass your exams, right? So then you will make a whole room about the renal system, and then you start associating things with things in that room,
right?
Yeah, with that information. And so one example that this guy, which I was talking about, this journalist, was like, okay, so you open the door, and on top of a horse you see there's Cookie Monster, and he's eating some kind of cookie, and then you go into the living room and there's Britney Spears and doing whatever. So there are all these like crazy things that you won't forget because they're crazy, but then they lead to something else. And people use this strategy to remember stuff. And it turns out that these memory champion people use that same kind of strategy. And then I'll finish the story by saying this journalist got so intrigued that he actually participated in it, was kind of training himself for a year, and then won the damn thing a year later.
Winner, chicken dinner. My man.
So they're kind of feeding off of shock and maybe a little bit of maybe emotion. So their emotional side of being surprised by something.
A little bit. What I think is interesting is it's with a neuron. Anytime you remember something, I read that you have to trace the neurons again. So it's all these connections. It's not one neuron, one memory. It's a bunch of lines connected through these neurons. So the idea is, I think, if you can associate more things with an event or something you want to memorize, you almost put sticky notes on them. So there's a sticky note here, and the more sticky notes an item has, the more things you can associate it with, more chances it will be picked up by those neurons. It has more feelers. I don't know. Is the way I would explain it. Like it has more. There's more things it's connected to, and in your brain, connections are king.
Yeah, and these things are called neural ensembles. So they're groups of neurons that fire together.
Musical terminology. I like it.
Oh. A neuron, for everyone wondering at home, who's been watching for 30 minutes and has no clue that we're talking about the brain. A neuron is in the brain. There are roughly 1 billion of them in our thing. Is that what it is? Roughly?
I don't even know. Is it 1 billion? I'll guarantee. She's got
check that out.
A friendly neuron.
Check that out. Is that can you show us a synapse?
Well, I need another neuron.
You do.
Axon.
Dendrites.
Oh man.
Look at that.
She's got props.
That's pretty cool.
Well, so they round off to 100 billion for 100 billion neurons. They actually have more like 86 billion, and you'd think that 86 billion, 100 billion, same difference, but actually that 14 billion, right, is actually the size of like a small monkey brain. So it's actually quite significant.
That is interesting.
Even on a monkey brain. I read
how fast do messages travel across these neurons, everyone? Roughly 150 miles an hour.
You like that stat?
They did.
Shoved it in there. I got a stat too for you. I read that like from 2 years of age to 10 years of age, you actually lose 50% of the synapses that your brain initially has.
Really? I wonder what that's all about.
Strengthening and repurposing of neural pathways.
Yeah, so you're learning a hell of a lot when you're a kid, right? So so they call it neuronal plasticity, which I think you probably read about, right? Which so it's the ability to make all these new connections, and but you also have to prune them back, because then it's called synaptic pruning, and through all these different mechanisms, right? That some of which are still unknown. Like your brain starts to choose the ones that are important, and then they say like neurons that fire together wire together. So then, like you were saying, right? You have these neural ensembles, you have these memories, and like these neurons are firing together, which then it starts to strengthen that connection, which then strengthens the memory. And then so it's partly like why when you're a kid, it's very easy to learn things. Like you're constantly making all these different connections, and your brain is like plastic, right? It's able to do all that. And then over time, it starts to get pruned back. They actually think that potentially autism, and on some level maybe schizophrenia, has to do with too much of too much of these synapses. So there's something wrong with these connections that cause people to be kind of autistic. And then lastly, when it comes to Alzheimer's, you have kind of an extreme case of this pruning. I'm not sure if it's maybe the exact same mechanism, but it could be something similar, where your brain starts to prune back these connections more than it should. And I mean, that's a component of Alzheimer's. There's a lot of things going on in Alzheimer's. But.
Was that almost associated with CTE? Do you know how that's a hardening of the brain, almost essentially physically? I'm trying to remember.
I read neocortex is on the outside of your brain, right?
Yeah.
Like CTE has a direct result on the neocortex.
Right. There was a hardening or something so that it was almost becoming thicker.
It's like scar tissue.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I don't know about CTE very much. I mean, except that football players get it.
Yeah. People who hit themselves in the head a lot get it.
There's a classmate of mine is doing a study about soccer players and like the repetitive
headers. Yeah, they do a lot of headers. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and people that could be at risk for it, even just from that.
It's probably worth the money. Let's be honest.
For
300 million
players. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. If
you're putting yourself at the top there, Nick.
You're a star. I'm the Ronaldo of podcasting. I figured I'd be the Ronaldo of soccer.
And you're never going to be an amateur. You're just going to start right at the top, right when you start.
I'm going right to the top. Coach, I'm not doing any headers till I get the big money. Not taking any off this bad boy. Mm-mm.
So one of the things mentioned earlier was that kids have more neural pathways, and they're more likely, from what I researched, to have photographic memory. Because I guess there's a way that the brain kind of assimilates knowledge, and it makes it more understandable, but also more limited. So they call photographic memory eidetic memory. So something that you can actually represent exactly. They call it perfect recall. But as you get older, you start to make connections that are language-based or symbol-based, and you can't recall things perfectly.
Do you have any instances of anyone with perfect recall?
Exact names? 1 second.
Well, because I came across... I did one of those Nova documentaries on memory. And you know how Nova, they do the science documentaries. It was like an hour long. They kind of sensationalize it a little bit. It's like when you watch one of the space ones. They do a lot of space ones. And they're like, this could mean that there were other universes right next door. And they go to the next scene and they show you all those cool graphics. And it's a little sensationalized, but I thought it was really good. And it was on How the Memory Works, 2017 documentary. Anyway, it starts with a kid named Jake Hassler. He's 11 years old, and he has this total recall. They'll be like, what happened May 12th, 2007? He's like, the World Series, the Cardinals beat the whoever 6-2, and they just asked him out of the blue, and they're like, who are the starting pitchers? And he knew. And they've done a lot of studies on this kid, and they're really excited because they have a lot of people with this kind of memory, but none of them are this young. So now they're sticking him on. Is MRI the big one for looking at the brain? Magnetic.
Yeah, so there's also fMRI, so a functional MRI probably.
Okay, that's probably. They're doing all sorts of crazy stuff with this kid.
Is the functional that it's active as they are in it? Is that the functional part of it?
Yeah, so they'll be doing a task, and then they'll see which brain regions light up. As
lighting up. Yeah. Anyway, it's not called total recall. There's a scientist, Jim mcnall, macknaw, mcnall. Don't have him sue me. He's doing a study. He's trying to find people with HSAM. It's called highly superior autobiographical memory. And it's people who get at least 80% of the recall correct over, the course of 10, 20, 30 years. He can ask you a question. What'd you have for breakfast 18 months ago? And to the day, they'll get it right.
So that's an autobiographical form of memory, right?
Sure. It's your own. It's your own.
Hyperthymesia. Because there's 5 different types of perfect memory or near perfect memory.
Whoa, Mister! I just Googled it. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hyperthymesia, eidetic.
What's that?
There's mnemonic, savant, and then emotional. So which one do we want? Ask me a question.
Are you gonna leave us a few not in there? Why don't you tell us all? Why don't you give us a quick summary because you've read the entire article and you're well versed and you're gonna give it to everyone here.
Hyperthymesia is autobiographical. It's something that happened to you. You can recall the weather on a certain day because you existed. You were there. You could absorb that information and just store it somehow. Eidetic is the photographic part. It's the perfect recall. Mnemonic is what we talked about before. It's using different methods to recall information. The savants are the people that are like, something's a little bit autistic about them, something that's a little bit off. Yeah, math. Well, they can recall information, and usually they're damaged in some way so that it doesn't, like, the different parts of the brain don't function quite normally. And then the emotional side is something like, I don't really have a lot on that, but it's like the amygdala. So the amygdala provides the emotional stimulus to the brain. Okay. So they can, if they fuse memories with emotional status, they can recall it perfectly. Like if you have an intense experience, then you recall all the details of that really super intense experience.
Don't we do that in general to a lesser extent, right?
Yeah, but if you had something traumatic, like the traumatic thing will be imprinted on you forever. Like you'll be afraid of walking upstairs if someone attacked you while you're on steps.
But do you remember a specific attacker, a set of steps, all that stuff? Is that tied together?
The people they talked about, they could remember like the details of the graffiti on the wall, or like the type of knife they came at them with. Like they actually had perfect recall of that event.
I got another study for you if you want to talk about emotional stuff.
Hit it.
So, they found, so we were talking a little bit about autobiographical memory, right? And how without it, if you don't remember what happened yesterday or, whatever years ago, and often we don't remember what happened 10 years ago, but you have a sense for it that kind of made who you are today, right? But, philosophically, every moment, every nanosecond is just fleeting, right? So you have this working memory that we were talking about, and I remember us talking about it, 20 minutes ago because it was important to me. So it's, still there.
Sorry. I do.
It's gone. It's fleeting.
40. It's
nanoseconds.
20 ounces of beer, expired beer.
It's just a bunch of nanoseconds over a lifetime, Nick. Don't worry about it.
The end of it, pure memory from God knows what fermented out of that thing.
Super Bowl win.
Yeah. But they found that if people were undergoing, and actually they were undergoing a colonoscopy, right? And
really emotional. I can see the tears on Nick's face right now as he's.
They're tears of joy. Tears of joy, everyone.
This is before the anesthesia, right? So this is when they would do it, like just
it's beautiful.
Yeah. So it's pretty painful, and they had the subject report pain, right? Every minute, right? How uncomfortable they were.
Frank it.
How about now?
Yeah. So they had subject A and subject B. Subject A reported pain, I guess, for the first part of it, but then overall they had less pain.
Trail ball.
Yeah. Then patient B had more consistent pain throughout. But so in that moment, in these like micro, moments of your life, patient B experienced more overall pain. But then when they asked them after the procedure sometime and then waited even more months and asked them about the procedure, they found that patient A actually reported remembering a more uncomfortable experience as opposed to patient B. And it turns out that you remember the worst part and then how it ended, right? And so patient A, at the end of this whole colonoscopy, is really uncomfortable when it's over. So they remembered that there was some kind of crescendo, right? That they were really uncomfortable. And then at the very end, it kind of sucked. Whereas for patient B, it's like, I don't know, they got used to it or something. It wasn't like some moment that really sucked. And then at the end, they were a little more gentle in ending it. So even though they experienced more pain in general, they remembered, again, it goes positive and negative. Like, you remember the really great part and then the end.
So you want to end on a good note.
Yeah, and if you think about an experience, right? Like, you could have had a great day, and then at the very end of it, something shitty happened, and then it undoes everything.
It is a shitty day at that point. True. Memory is tricky like that.
I'm just trying to recall all my first dates and how awful they were. For the woman. Because I couldn't end on a good note. What's the next? We talk about Sammy Jenkins. You know about Sammy Jenkins? No? Maybe?
I do, but do you know there's a real one?
There's a real Sammy? What? Who's the inspiration?
So what you're talking about is Memento. I don't know if you saw Memento.
Maybe.
I watched it like 14 years ago. I don't remember.
He can't make new memories, so every like 6 hours he like wakes up and he's like, what? And then he has tattoos all over his body that remind him of his whole life, and he has to try and just go by the tattoos, I guess.
Yeah,
which that's like 50 states.
Good idea. You should just get a lot of new tattoos, like constantly new tattoo. Anyway, it's based on a real person. In 1953, Henry Mollison is his name. He this is 53. He falls off his bike as a kid. He hurt a part of his brain, and he was adept. I almost said adept. He was getting lots of seizures.
Epileptic.
Well, from a head injury. I'm not sure if that's epileptic related. It could be. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So he's getting seizures, and the doctor at the time was very experimental. Waited till he's 27 years old. So this is 1960-something, 70, somewhere in there. I'm not good at math. I'll be a correction. Says I can fix him. There's a part of the brain called the hippocampus. It's directly related to these seizures. Trust me. They cut out 2/3 of his hippocampus, put everything back together. Perfect. He was fine. No more seizures.
Great.
Only problem is he couldn't make any new memories. Every day was like starting over new, like the 51st Dates, another common movie I'm sure our audience has seen. Mm-hmm. And it led people to finally realize that, hey, maybe the hippocampus is important in making new memories. And to this day, I think that's the leader in the clubhouse, I believe. Is that
the leader in the clubhouse? I don't know what you're talking about.
There's nothing you can check anywhere. Anything about the brain, there's not a lot of official information. It's very the leading candidate, the science say right now, like everything else, especially when it comes to this memory stuff we've all been talking about. Mm-hmm. For the audience, it's usually a general consensus more than it's fact. Is that correct?
That the hippocampus does what? It's the
creating new memories. Right.
Yeah, well, that has to do a lot with like the short-term memory that we were talking about, and that it then kind of filters into long-term memory. And long-term memory is kind of scattered throughout.
Right, throughout the brain. So what I read or heard or saw in that video, like you were just saying, short-term memory eventually becomes long-term memory. Long-term memory isn't stored anywhere. Like when you remember your first kiss or the time you fell off your bike or whatever, it's not in one spot in the brain. Like they don't look and they say, hey, let's load up the file and pull it out. Here's the bike fall over. And it's like a little video that plays. It's not like that.
Was that Sunshine?
It's
Sunshine of the
Yeah. Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
We got it.
What they do is it has to come from different parts of the brain that are all connected by the neurons. These connections are actually formed physically. It's like I want to say they're created via some proteins and all that when they synthesize. They synthesize them, right? I'm pointing to you because you know more than me. Yeah. Well, anytime you create a memory, mm-hmm. there's a protein synthesis that actually happens. Correct?
So, they don't really know where memories are stored or how actually, like, what a memory really looks like. The best thing that we have right now, it seems, is something that would kind of use the hippocampus, for example, in a mouse. So there's this pretty cool study, and through a whole bunch of fancy techniques, they could train a mouse to be afraid of a certain kind of box, right? So again, we're talking about.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, so you could condition them to be afraid of tones, right? Because then you could play a sound at the same time, cause some kind of pain to that, like a minor little pain to this person.
I would electrocute a mouse. I would do it.
You're a terrible person.
Yeah.
You're a terrible person, Nick.
Yep, I murder mice every day. It sucks.
She's worse than you.
She's worse than me. I wouldn't kill them. I just said I would electrocute.
I'm going to mouse hell but cat heaven.
Okay. The cats are too.
So what was I saying? Right. So we were talking about the whole emotional link to memories, right? So you're causing this like fear and this kind of this mild stress response in a mouse. And what you can do is you can label the neurons that are involved in this particular memory, and then you can visualize them. And then through even more fancy techniques, you could control specific specifically these neurons, and basically using light. And so you implant a fiber optic into the mouse brain. I won't get into the whole details of it, but basically then you could turn on those particular neurons, and you could have that mouse feel that fear even when they're not in that box that they're conditioned to be fearful of. So you can condition a mouse to be afraid of a red box.
Exact fear.
Yeah, it sounds like
they're,
capitalism.
they're feeling the red box fear, even though you were just initiating the neurons.
And then they won't be afraid of the blue box, right? Then you put them in the red box without the conditioning tone or whatever it is, right? And then they'll be afraid. You can see them be afraid because they freeze. Then you can take them out, put them in the blue box where they're usually comfortable. You can turn a light on. You can reactivate this memory, basically, that you labeled from previous experiments. And then you're going to make them freeze and be afraid of this blue box when normally they have no reason to be afraid of it. So it's going back to what we were saying, we have these neural ensembles, right? So there's this population of neurons that are activated during this certain
Stimulus.
fear. Yeah, right. And by reactivating that ensemble, then you're creating a fear and you're recalling it. And even they were even trying to put two different memories together, right? So like stimulating a population of neurons that had to do with a certain box, and another population that had to do with certain stimulus, and then kind of creating a new fear for this mouse. Then, like you're saying, there's also things that have to do with protein synthesis, and then the strength of the neurons that are firing together, and then the different ensembles and stuff. So it's a really complicated question that we're really only kind of scratching the surface of now.
So
we only have an idea, not go ahead.
Did they do the reverse? Because I could imagine them shocking the crap out of the mouse and not be like, it's fearful. But if they didn't touch the happy, friendly side of the mouse, then it's it's just joyfully playing now that we're shocking the crap out of it. So I could see them being oh yeah, definitely conclusions, study, positive, we got it. But if they didn't do the mouse is now happy, he's eating his food, he's cheerfully running, even though we're shocking him in his what, red box, blue box? I don't know which one it is.
No, that sounds terrible. That sounds like something you would do.
Wait, how is he going to be happy when he's getting shocked?
Well, if they're igniting the happy neurons, where he's roaming the field.
Dan wants to.
Yeah, I want the happy neurons. Someone give me that, please. End it now.
Well, what's kind of what you didn't say and did say at the same time. So what I read is that anytime you remember something, or anytime you imprint something to memory, something emotional, something you really liked, your first kiss, we always go back to that first this. Mm-hmm. Your brain fires off all these neurons and creates new ones, or new connections, not new neurons, new connections, right? And it's this hot pathway. I imagine it's pretty, in my brain, I'm seeing it as a hot pathway. It's super white, it's new, it's fresh, it's beautiful. You can go back to it at any time, but when you go back to remember something, I think they said that you end up having to go down those same pathways again and reignite all the connections. In doing so, you have to recreate the proteins. So what I read was that in recreating the proteins, you almost rewrite the memory every time you remember it. So that the more you remember something really old, you actually kind of change it a tiny, tiny bit, which I think was crazy. So the more you remember something, the more you change it.
That's the first memory you make probably needs to be re-remembered. And even...
How many times?
Yeah, how many times do you re-remember something till it's not actually right? And then when you sleep, things get rearranged, right? There's a REM sleep.
Is sleep important to it? Yeah. It's like defrag. Let's defrag some computers. Let's defrag some brains, huh?
Yeah.
Is that what happens?
What you were going to touch on with the hippocampus?
Oh, go ahead.
Well, with the sleeping?
Well, we can go sleeping. We'll come back to hippo.
Coming back. Oh, well, so sleeping, when you are awake, right, you don't have as much plasticity as a kid does, but obviously you have some plasticity because you're learning and you're interacting with your environment and whatever. So you have these neurons that are using their little dendrites here, right? And they're making more of these little, little things here, and then they're trying to connect to other neurons. And throughout the day, you have a lot of these like axis little like little stubble things at the end of your neurons, right, to try and talk to other ones. And then what actually one speaker that came to speak at Einstein a few weeks ago was saying that sleep actually prunes away some of these excess like little
connections.
Yeah, right. And because if you just kept building more and more and more, right, that's not necessarily a good thing.
Tree
right?
that keeps growing.
Yeah. And you kind of lose the importance of the ones that you actually really care about. So sleep actually, like you're saying, kind of defragments it, right? You kind of keep the ones that that seem to be most important. And that's why they say that if you're studying for something, it could help if you study it, right? Like 20 minutes or like a half an hour before you go to sleep, and then sleep on it, right? Because you had just activated those neurons in those pathways. And then your brain's going to be, oh, like this is important, right? Because it was just on. So it's going to keep that and get rid of the rest.
Interesting.
Keep it
While we're
fresh.
speaking of learning, I would say I read, and it is common knowledge, I believe, reading something alone is one good way to remember something, but it's also good to throw another connector on it. If I were to use one of my own terms from earlier, whether that's a sense.
Well, like play
maybe
music
draw
on the
a
background?
visual- Sure, or draw
She's
a graph
smacked
of
right
it.
by somebody, More emotional.
Nick
Get
likes
smacked every time you learn a new fact. You would remember those facts much harder,
Oh.
especially if it was by a woman wearing all leather and everything, and just teaching you.
Dominant.
Yeah, and you were like, neurons fire at 150 mile an hour, sir. I mean, man. I mean, whatever. But the more ways you can connect a piece of information, even if you recite it out loud, so that's auditory and verbal, you write it down, you're actually physically writing it down, you're committing it to different senses, the same information you were just reading, and I think that's a good way to, it helps with recall, I believe.
It's a mnemonic, isn't it? You're using different
a
sorts
little
of parts
bit.
of your brain.
But even if you were, okay. Yeah, I agree with you.
Agreed.
I agree, you agree. Agreed. Well, does anyone know when you start making memories, gang?
Like what
I got
age?
something that's going to blow you away. Yeah, what age?
It's probably like 2.
Ooh,
Is
it's
it pre? Is it in the
It's in the womb. It's in the womb.
the womb?
20 weeks. It's all described. In 20 weeks, you start
So
really...
how do you know that? Like where's
I
that
don't
come from?
know. I saw 3 studies that said it, okay? 3 studies is enough for me. I don't ask questions.
You could probably do something with sound, right? Because babies can hear.
Oh,
So maybe you could play some kind of sound when the mother's
we had a
Make them
Don't
fearful.
3,
No.
right? Yeah, right? So
No.
conditioning.
We had a teacher who said that while his wife was pregnant, his favorite show was The Simpsons, and he would watch it. And then when his child was born, I guess he was too busy to watch it. And then at 8 months old, he just happened to, it was on TV on Fox or whatever. We're not affiliated. Pander is not related to Fox. Fox Enterprise, Fox 70 is subsidiaries. We do not relate to Fox. But The Simpsons came on, and his child looked huh? And it was really into the theme song. He was like, we used to watch that all the time when he was pregnant. So maybe
Yeah, man.
might be. It might work.
Did it?
I have no idea. I forget. I don't care. So I got a couple other word of the days, guys. So the word of the day earlier, I forget it. So I have a new one.
Something.
Ready?
I didn't write it down.
I forget.
Lethargy. That's what it
New
was.
one is logonomnia. Logonomnia. It's an obsession with trying to recall a word you forgot.
Alpha.
I forget the word for it,
That
but
happens to me all
trust
the
me,
time.
folks, it's important. And it makes you so mad.
I spent 18 hours one time trying
You know, it was
I
18
finally
hours.
did.
It's a whole day.
Is there a timer going? Oh, okay.
Basically, I was like, there was one night I was trying to, you know how when
Most nights end in 12 hours.
That's a lot of cocaine.
Well, you know when like you lose your train of thought,
Yeah,
and then it's
it
almost
bothers you. Oh, bothers
like,
the hell out of you.
feel the neurons just moving farther and farther.
It's more like they're dancing around what the word is, and they're messing with you at that point.
Yeah.
I read a study that says when that happens to you, it's because there's actually a logjam. Too many things are firing at once, and they all get caught up, and no one knows what the right information to go through is. So as time passes, your brain relaxes and goes and does other things. And that's why sometimes 10, 18 hours, 5 days later, you'll shoot up in the middle of the night and be like, logonomia! And just shout the word because it finally came to the surface.
But what gets me is how do you know that that's what it was, right? It's like you kind of created the memory, then you forgot it, and there's some kind of match that happens that is like unequivocally that's what it was.
That it's fact. I guess maybe because it's a fact. Like, that's a fact. Like, what you're... Like, if it was an opinion that came to the surface, and you were like, yep, that was it, like, I guess you would never know. But if the word really was logonomia or whatever, then you know that's the word. Like, you know what I mean?
But sometimes you're trying to have a conversation with somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you had
I've never done this.
I've never had a conversation.
I don't talk with people. This is the only talking I do. I'm mute.
Just listening. But it's something that you had just conjured up, right? So it's not it's not some kind of fact. It's something that you had thought of, and I guess you had like a temporary
hold on it.
Right,
and then you kept it somewhere and it went to the back. I guess it bothered you enough that you paid attention to it and it became a long-term memory. I mean, when you think about it, the things we think of as long-term memories is like my childhood home when I was 6, but also isn't anything you remember for more than 1 minute a long-term memory?
Yeah, see that.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Because then you won't remember it in like 3 days.
I guess. I don't. Is that because it doesn't? Is there an area between short term and long term where your brain decides what's important and what's not and how to use it?
Yes.
That's the unpander.
We should ask the creators of Inside Out for that one.
It's an unpander word. I've decided we've trademarked it.
What's the word?
Yes.
No, we're a memory between short term and long term. It's where. Something you have in your brain, and it's
you're unsure whether it's useful or not. You're like, you kind of like it. You like us a lot.
Long term, yeah. And then boom. Once it's long term, it's not an unpander anymore. It's a long term. So
you want to talk about forming new memories? So you kind of touched on that a little bit. You're
right in the hippo. You got some info on it?
Well, I have like some interesting stuff. So the hippocampus is like right in the middle of the brain on both. There's like the right side and the left side. And yes, exactly. The right side is creative and imaginative, and the left side is for math, facts, and other kind of like proofs.
That's what they say.
Is it bullshit?
Kind of contested.
Ooh,
so they say it's any which way.
Post info here.
Yeah, that's the Wikipedia article. You can argue with that as much as you want.
Yeah, I don't know. So maybe there's biases, but I don't know. I think some people are kind of hit or miss on that one.
Okay, so I'll say that isn't true, and keep going.
No, I don't know. I'm not an expert on memory. You know,
The one thing that is interesting is that the hippocampus is right in the middle, so it kind of like it might act as like a transfer between the two sides. So when they took out Henry Molaison's hippocampus, the sides couldn't communicate.
You couldn't make. Okay, that makes sense. I also think just it creating memories doesn't mean it is solely responsible for the memory, so much as all the part of the brain could work together to create something, and the hippo maybe combines it and then sends it out wherever. I have no clue wherever it is, but you know.
It's the what do you got? What is that? Fine wine there?
Listen, this is the first Unpanders where we had a
celebratory
guest.
Right here.
So I was going to break out the good stuff.
Okay, good. We'll wait till you pop that one.
You send some over?
Yeah, you should have thought of this ahead of time.
I never buy wine. I had an extra like $11, $13, and I was like, I'm living the good life. I'll buy red wine. And I bought it because I was going to Mother's Day.
You didn't use it.
No one drank it. And guess what?
So
it's a special day here.
The tidbit that I was getting towards.
I'm sorry.
Which kind of proves Joanna's point, is that, so cures for epilepsy, for the one guy, they removed his hippocampus. But for children, since they're so plastic, sometimes they do a hemispherectomy, and they'll remove an entire side of the brain, and the brain will actually compensate.
Right, I've actually heard these studies. Now, did they 100% recover? And
they are functional, normal human beings. I'll say.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if they're 100%, but they're close enough.
Now, remember all the little Facebook art that would go around? I call it Facebook art. Emails. It's like popular science, but not real science. That says, like, if you like art, you're left-brained. The right side of your brain will only do math. Ha ha ha. But like, it's not 100% true. It's kind of like you use more of your right for one thing, but you need both sides of your brain. You use more left for this, but you know what I mean? Does anyone have any stats on that? You do more brain work than I, believe it or not.
I don't have stats on that.
But it's bullcrap, right?
What, the whole like left, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, you could definitely transfer things from one to the other.
Okay, but like if I draw a painting, I only use the left side of my brain. Like that's crap.
No, because I mean, first off, you're using a whole lot of things to
your motor skills, your eyes,
your spatial reasoning. There's artistry, there's imagination, right? You're like vision in some sense, where you're visualizing something in your mind.
Is there anything that we do, whether it's mathematics, that's focused entirely in one part of the brain? Or is it all kind of spaced out, but parts of the brain become more active?
There are speech centers.
Okay. What are they called? I actually did know this for a while.
There's Wernicke's area. There's Broca's area.
Broca's area. Okay.
Let's see.
2017.
So they're usually lateralized to one side of the brain, right? So if you have a stroke in that region, then that's what people speak very well.
When you have a stroke, is it always one side of the brain, or it's chance?
It could be anywhere.
I don't know this. I didn't do the study. I don't know.
Total chance. And then you could have a silent stroke and then not even realize it, because it could be in some part of the brain you don't even use, like math. Like
don't need that anymore.
If you're me from the Unpanders, Nick from the Unpanders, math. Okay, go on.
Useful.
We're good.
They also said that people who had heart surgery, they'd have little mini strokes. So they had little plaque and platelets that would move around and then get into their brain and then stick. So they have a memory fog after heart surgery.
Couldn't that just be a memory fog?
I don't think it's from the anesthesia, because they said it lasted longer. So it's kind of like it's like mild damage throughout the brain. So they just couldn't remember a whole wide variety of things.
Yeah. Yeah. I read the same thing that you said.
Word of the wise to the podcast. People often think, man, I was drinking so hard that night that I forgot everything, dude, bro. Clink, not true. When you're extremely inebriated, you actually don't have the ability to create new memories.
Really?
So it's not that you forgot. You didn't create enough memories. Things happen. You just never...
So, you know what freaks me out? These drugs called amnestics, where they use them...
Is that like a roofie?
I mean, maybe. I don't know what the mechanism is of a roofie. But so if you're getting surgery, right, it's kind of like sedation in a way where, you're not sedated.
It's like an Ambien. You're still active, but you can't remember it.
I've never actually used it. Never seen anyone on it, right? But it's like if you could be getting a surgery and
I had a surgery where I was awake, but I don't remember any of it.
Yes,
hernia. I had a hernia surgery.
Yeah.
I was on. They called it a Twilight, and I don't remember the name of the actual drug.
I don't know, but the class, I think that's called an amnestic. Don't quote me on. I'm not a doctor.
Quote Joanna on this.
Yeah.
And yeah, so you don't like you can't create new memories. So you're only existing in like these like microseconds that we were talking about, right? Like you don't actually record anything. Freaks me out. Yeah, you feel all that shit. It freaks me out because they were going to do that to me when I had shoulder surgery. And all I'm thinking is, I don't care if I don't remember. It's so horrifying to think that I'm going to be there, and like, I can't get my head around it.
Looking at someone being like, "Yo, dude, what are you doing?"
Right, exactly.
Like you're really drunk. You're just like, "What's up? Come on, man. That's my shoulder. Let it go. You got a knife in here, man. What are you doing with a knife, dude?" Like that kind of thing.
Yeah, I probably want to see myself just crumble. I think I'm all tough and shit and just like whimper.
The good news is you wouldn't remember it, I guess. I don't
know. But everyone else would.
True. They'd all start talking after the surgery. Did you see her fall apart when we were cutting her?
Yeah, they're all whispering.
Hilarious. Do doctors do that?
What? What? Oh, make fun of you? I'm sure they do.
That's crazy. Yo, do you think they make fun of your Peter or anything like that? Like they're like,
you're Peter, Nick. You're Peter.
You think? That's
I have doctor friends. Sometimes they send me crazy pictures.
Right, I've seen. Okay.
With no identifying information, by the way.
Nope.
Confidentiality.
Yeah.
Welcome to the age of information. Speaking of the age of information, have you guys come across anything about how our brains are changing now that we have Google? Thank you, Google.
Is that weird?
What I came across is your brain is really smart. Even if you're not, your brain is smart enough to realize there's a lot of things you can just Google. I can Google a distance to the moon. I can Google a phone number for a place. I can Google so many things like that that's a chunk of knowledge. It's information.
You've just got one neuron firing in the same direction?
No. That's, to memorize a phone number or the distance to the moon, you do have to connect neurons.
Do you remember your phone numbers from when you were a kid?
I do, but that's because I grew up with it.
That's true.
I can say it. Anyone dials it, 533-8893. I can tell you Hank's number, 332-2049. I can tell you Dan's number, 742-2618. I can tell you Brett's 745-9947. I can probably tell you a lot. But anyway, interesting now that we're in the age of Google and you have this stuff that you can Google within 1 second, anytime you have internet, most people's brains are actually not even bothered to hard code this information. People are becoming dumber about stuff that's not important to them, which is, like I said, a lot of these information, the numbers, phone numbers, stuff like that.
Be smarter,
Right. You're using the information to build other neurons. I get it. I'm not against it. It's just interesting.
Yeah.
I'm calling it the Google information age. TM, trademark, unpanners.
Gotcha.
But we're not building a lot of the same neurons. I read one study. Now, it was the Huffington Post reported it. Huffington Post didn't do the work, but they reported that our attention span is 2 minutes lower on average than it was 20 years ago. I have no clue what they based it on. I'm not sure if it's correct, but it sounds like it could be correct.
I believe it. When you watch TV, it's like if they keep things on.
Oh my God, camera cuts. Yeah, if you do a camera cut for more than 10 seconds, you're like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
I'm like, I need a cut. We need to go to a close-up of someone's face. We need a fast motion shot. You ever watch a really old movie with one of the classics, or I almost said Marlon Brando, but the guy who did Chiminey, Chim Charoo, that guy. I forget his name. You watch any of those movies, or the grass is good in Spain, or whatever he says. I forget the line. Don't quote me on this. But if you watch any of these old movies, it's boring because the camera's on
Dick Van Dyke.
The whole scene. Thank you. Dick Van Dyke. Mm-hmm. Ah, that's cool. I didn't know it was Dick.
I had to Google it.
I love Dick. Those old movies, you watch them and you're like, Jesus Christ, the whole scene, it's a room where they're all talking for 8 minutes and there'll be 4 camera cuts and you're like, okay, you're still talking. I get it. But it's weird. That's how cinema has gone.
Yeah, you can't pay attention.
TV.
You need more cuts. You need flashes of light, change of sounds.
Stimulate you.
What's interesting, though, is that it's not because I'm becoming dumber. Those camera cuts are interesting. Each cut has its own information relayed. There's a reason for them. You can't just do them at random. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it is a useful device. It is a informative thing, a good piece of medium. It's hard to watch old movies for that reason. And I know.
Okay. You know what?
What do you know,
You
Nick?
cut up for like half a second. I was like, what?
What do you know, Nick? He forgot what his train of thought was.
No. I thought you were saying something.
No, I thought I cut you off.
No,
now I was going to say.
Forgetfulness. Here's to drinking.
Oh, good.
We never finished Sammy Jenkins's
Neuron.
story, though.
No way.
Please do.
So the memento guy was that he couldn't remember anything new. So his wife, stricken with guilt, she made him give her insulin doses to test whether he actually had it or not. And she ended up overdosing on it because she made him do it.
Sammy Jenkins, not
Jenkins, yeah.
Okay.
Not you.
Right. She thought he was faking it.
Yeah.
For the audience. You didn't describe this well enough.
We're
going to have to cut everything we did tonight, guys. It's no good. He didn't do this right.
Redo.
So she thought he was faking it. So to prove it, she said, Sammy, it's time for my insulin. And he would say, okay. And then give her insulin shot. He was very good at it because he had done this before his memory issue.
Mm-hmm.
And then like 15 minutes later, he was watching TV laughing like an idiot. And she said, Sammy, it's time for my insulin. And he went, yeah. And he went and gave her the insulin. And like now, like one more could kill her. And she was like, Sammy, time for my insulin. And he went, He went and gave her the insulin. And she thought he was faking. But 3, 4, 5 times later, he killed her.
Gone. Yeah.
And she let it happen.
So
she thought he was faking.
Right. But the assumption is that if he were faking it, he wouldn't be so committed as to...
He purposely killed his wife.
He purposely killed her.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe he didn't know. Maybe he didn't know to be that bad.
The interesting part when I was reading about this is that Memento, that story of the wife didn't actually exist. This is what someone wrote on a website. So the wife didn't actually exist, and he was inserting his own guilt of killing his own wife into the story. I had to say that just because it was just...
Oh, so hold on. So you're saying Memento's story is based on the guy is Sammy Jenkins. He killed his wife, and the story that we were told is someone else.
Yeah.
And that he made up a fake wife to give him purpose in life. Is that what you're saying?
This is too confusing to explain, but yes.
I'm not even drinking. I'm trying to...
Yeah.
Fair enough.
If you're a premium member, you can get the link to the website that I read. There you go.
So, do you guys know what I think is the coolest memory issue? Transient global amnesia. Oh, I thought you were all going to say it at the same time.
Global amnesia?
I thought you guys were going to say it with me. We all agreed.
I was a little late on that one, sorry.
Can we try it again in 3? 1, 2, 3. Transient global amnesia. That's our favorite jump banners.
We'll do it in a round.
You know what that is?
I have no idea. You tell me.
Oh, I just got yelled at, but I couldn't hear it.
Oh, that's good. It's better than feeling guilt.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. She's going to come in and slap him. She's going to make sure he remembers it.
Just remember, end on a good note, and then it's fine.
On a good note, it's fine. Transient global amnesia is where you're like really mad at your girlfriend and like you forget where you live and you end up just like wandering the streets and people are like, what's wrong with you? And you're like, who am I? I don't know who I am. Can I get a job here? Can you pay me? You know, and that's how it starts. But no, really, it's where you forget. You have temporary amnesia, like they show amnesia in the movies.
Really, people use that in court as a reasoning for why they committed the crime they did.
I think they've tried, but it's very hard.
Yeah, it's almost impossible to prove it.
It's like the basis of all soap operas and telenovelas. You know?
That's true. He came out of a coma and remembered everything. All of our conversations. We shouldn't have kissed over his body. It was a mistake.
In the words of Horrible Bosses 2, coma boners. Dale. Is his name Dave? Dan? Dale?
It's probably a Dale. I think he's a Dale. He's definitely not a Dan.
No. He's way too attractive, that Charlie Day.
Oh, yeah. Oh. I'm going to go into the sci-fi area of things? Or the movie
Hold
side?
on.
Oh, you got something. Okay.
Last bit of science. I got it right here in front of me. It's a fact. This one hails from Northwestern University, 2014. So this is really old news, but it's pretty good.
That's old news? Wow.
2014 is old news. Listen, you get your PhD. You'll figure it out. Sorry. My bandmate Ryan, his alma mater, said that the human brain actually has a storage capacity. You want to guess what it is?
Maximum? Oh, I wanted this fact. Give me the fact. Give me.
I knew you wanted it. What?
Gigabytes.
It is. It's 2.5 million gigabytes.
Wow.
That's it.
Is that like
2.5 petabytes.
a petabyte?
Yeah. Look at this guy. You're a peta. Feel. Is that the word?
Yeah.
You're a fan of
love
petas?
logic.
Peta feel. This guy's a peta feel if I ever met one. Please do not. Anyway. You looking it up?
I wanted to, but I will
that's
refrain.
someone I said that was. Yeah.
Do you think that's low or high?
I thought it was low, but someone said it's 300 years of TV at 1080p, and I was like, you couldn't even watch 300 years.
I don't even know how
straight
memories are encoded. Like, it doesn't seem like a memory would take up that much space.
Right, so it is a lot. They figure it's a lot. It's a hell of a lot. So our capacity for knowledge is not actually hindered by the stupid little things we see in a day-to-day. Like, I don't remember the color of this friggin' wallpaper to the T. And it has nothing to do with my capacity for knowledge. Like, it's not like we're full, I can't fit anymore. It's more to do with what my brain finds is important.
Yeah.
In fact, what we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
Son of a bitch. But what is interesting, I guess, the more connections you make, the more your mind has to work to re-find a file or a memory or a piece of information. Right? I don't know.
I actually wonder if there was someone who not only had that perfect autobiographical memory, right? But if they had perfect memory for like everything ever, would they run out, and at what age?
Would they stop getting new memories because they filled up?
Yeah, at like age 7 or something. You know, I just if you remembered everything,
right, and you taught them everything. Well, what was interesting from this study is it said 300 years of TV at 1080p. So, how much information can you take in at once? Like, watching 300 years of TV, you can't do in 100 years of being alive. You know what I mean?
3 TVs.
Mm-hmm.
Or could you? 3 TVs? I don't know.
Let's get a scientific experiment
going. Are you cutting
going.
everything in thirds? I don't know. Yeah, you really question what you're taking in, what you're not taking in, what you're remembering, what you're not remembering. For the record, all the best quarterbacks in the NFL have near photographic memory. Aaron Rodgers, Carson Wentz. I've read articles on how they can remember. It's true.
What was the number? Like the maximum number of plays that are possibilities? I don't have the paper. God, it's one of our past episodes.
You did the math. Okay,
I did.
Either way, Carson Wentz and Aaron Rodgers both will. If you ask them about a play that happened in high school against the team, like, hey, when you played the Warhawks from Mississippi back in May of 06, like, do you remember when they were in base 2? And he'll be like, yeah, I split out 3 wide receivers and had a tight end, and I think they were in cover 2, so coach always says I should go whatever low, and it's like, and I think I threw a 15-yard dart to tight end so-and-so. It's like, yeah, and they look back to the tape, he's 100% correct. So it's crazy to think maybe that's why he's so friggin' good.
Or maybe he boils it down to something simple so he can store it for later.
Maybe, but that's a friggin' lot of information, especially in a physical sport where you're moving as fast as you can. And
he's picturing his palace.
I'm
going to throw it to Britney Spears on the horse, and she's going to carry it into the end zone.
And she's got Cookie Monster up there.
Yeah. She's going to eat it when he catches it.
Yeah. That's the playback when he was in college.
I don't know, gang. Let me tell you, this wine's got some legs, folks.
It's a Cabernet?
Yeah, quick shout out. Sponsor of the podcast.
I'm going to have to delete that. God damn it.
No, you won't. Are they going to sue you? How are they going to find this? That's carnivore, spelled C-A-R-N. Moving on to our next subject.
A sci-fi movie? What do you got? You got something juicy?
No, I have something really crazy.
Okay, hit it.
It's a would you rather for both of you.
That's the pause. What do you got?
I got to stand in.
Would you rather, this is nothing crazy, never forget another single thing until the day you died, or never remember a new thing ever again? I mean, it's easy to say, I'll never remember a new thing ever again. Like, that's what I initially thought. The more I thought about it, though, never forget a single thing until you die. Like, most of my relatives are still alive. I'll probably see a lot of them die. That sucks.
The negative part of life is on the second half.
Well, there's a funny thing that happens when you forget something or live it. Like, you can kind of forget it. You let it fade. Losing a loved one, losing love, losing all that stuff. It's kind of like, it hurts, but it fades over time. If you were never to forget a single moment or thing until you were dead, you just kept filling up with knowledge, and it was like photogenic, I'd be like, hold on. So what would you guys say? Not to put any pressure on anyone.
I thought you were going to go with retro and anterograde. So if you could remember nothing from the past or remember nothing from the future. Because I would definitely pick the remember everything in the future, because you're not really losing anything. You just have too many details.
Funny, because the years before your 30s are your best years. So you just remembered your worst years. Good job.
In extreme detail. Do you have retrograde? Is that what this is?
I don't know. I forget. Joanna, would you like to offer an answer for me?
You know, I mean, you make a fair point, because I think about the negative half all the time. Everyone's like, oh, isn't it amazing how, like, some of your best days haven't been lived yet? I'm like, a lot of my worst days haven't been either, but okay.
Yeah, that's true.
So, but, I mean, I would like to think that there's going to be a lot of shit, but
I guess that ultimately it does boil down to, do you think more good is on the way or bad? Well, and is the bad worth forgetting? So that's an important part, I guess.
Well, I'm thinking about, like, okay, well, bad things will happen, but then maybe I will process them in such a way that it'll be okay. But then part of that processing is, like, also forgetting, right? So
right. Misremembering. Letting it fade.
So that's a tough one.
I'm just saying. That's what I came up with.
I would probably pick remember everything.
Same page.
I went the opposite way, but that's because
your shitty years are coming. You know it. They're Laura.
I don't know. I think of myself as like a tragic hero, like, and the tragic part's still coming. I don't know. I think of. I
had a twist on that one, like the would you rather.
Go ahead.
So if you could remember everything, but you
didn't bring up a would you rather for the podcast. Nick came up with a would you rather. Dan did not.
I was just piggybacking.
Piggybacking. I don't want to hear your pornography history.
So it's like either you could remember things in extreme detail by trading off a portion of your brain. So would you give up a portion of your brain so you could remember everything? And
like
which portion?
Birth of a future child and all that. How much does it cost me? Am I talking like
your most useless ability? Well? Not speech.
What's up?
You don't want to give it a speech. I know you.
Well, if it's your most useless ability, then that's not a tough question.
It is if you have enough memories you want to keep. Like, eventually you run out of useless abilities. So let's say I want to keep 1,000 memories.
Never-ending
I've lost the ability to work on painting trim. Like, that's pretty annoying.
How to paint trim is not.
Yeah, it is annoying, but you would need that information at one point in your life. How to do your taxes, I would eventually throw that away, but then, like, I do my own taxes, so now I got to pay for taxes? I don't know. And then I do one where, like, it's like, how to change a diaper because my kid's old enough. And then I got to babysit? I don't know. You run into a lot of problems.
Life is very complex.
Life is complex. Here are the unpanderers. We think life is complex. I mean, for the record. I don't know.
Let's hit up some sci-fi stuff.
Please do. You've been waiting all night for this.
Oh, yeah. So, like, downloading and uploading knowledge, like either, what was
Matrix.
Johnny Mnemonic, Matrix, or like Altered Carbon, where you could store your mentality.
I just finished Alter Carbon last night.
You finished it? Nice, good job.
Yeah, last night.
Just took you a couple months. So what'd you think? Did you wait? We're gonna
I like the first 8
segue.
episodes better than the last 2. But go ahead.
Okay, but there's like that one where the weirdest stimulus that happens in that entire series is there's a fight between him and a clone that keeps cloning herself and coming out naked and fighting with a samurai sword.
Love that scene. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was strangely perverted.
It was over the top.
Yeah.
And like, you know what's weird? I have this weird, what's the opposite of a fetish? Something you don't like. I don't like naked bodies that land in shards of glass.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if it's a clothed person, I'm like, who cares? It's glass. But if it's a naked body, I'm like, ooh. Ugh.
And their private parts are like sliding across the floor.
Yeah. Ooh, you're in glass? No-go for me, folks.
Yeah.
That's a no-go.
That's exactly what that episode was, though.
Yeah. And she keeps landing in the glass and like...
She doesn't care about her body because she's a clone.
Right. But I'm like, you got like a cut here. Ooh, get rid of it. Ooh, a cut here. There's a cut here, please. That's how I feel watching it. I don't know.
At least you have empathy. I guess we know that. That's a win.
Right. I'm not a total...
psychopath.
What's the word? Psychopath. Partial.
So I guess that's what it leads to. If you could just re-upload yourself into another body, would you care about your body at all? Probably not. If you had enough money to do it.
I'm not doing it. I'd rather die.
I'd rather die too.
Whoa! Newsflash. That's something I would say, not something you would say.
What do you say?
He would.
I wouldn't want myself
re-upload
re-uploaded.
your consciousness into a new body. He wouldn't do it, and I find that odd because that's like a Dan thing he would do. I thought, but I was wrong.
I'm always afraid there'll be 2 of me, and then I won't know what to do with myself. Like meet myself.
No, the weird thing to me is like, if you copy the information, like what is you, right? If you copy the information, it's not you anymore. It's just a clone. So how would you transfer
again? Did we come back to memories? Let's
V-
say you could.
Vsauce
I'm not
stat.
saying there's a way
Hit
to
it with
do
the
it.
Vsauce stat.
Which one?
That every 5 or 6 years, like the physical makeup of yourself is completely different.
Right.
You
Are you
remake
aware of
yourself.
that statistic?
Yeah, but your brain doesn't, right? So that's like the
I thought your brain cells are all different too.
No. Don't make new brain neurons.
So, is this true? I actually don't 100% know. The brain neurons you make as a youth stay forever. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's all. I said brain neurons, but like you.
No, that's fine.
So, the neurons that you have that you're born with and that you make as you're a kid, then if you lose them, they're gone. Then there is some debate now about neurogenesis in the hippocampus. Okay. But actually, a couple months ago, there were 2 papers that came out that were kind of contesting the idea of neurogenesis in the hippocampus. And
so, at best, it's a hotly debated topic. At worst, it's not true at all. You cannot remake nerves in your brain and everything else.
And the hippocampus is the one area where they think that there could be neurogenesis in humans. There is in mice. They're not sure in humans. And there are some studies that seem to be promising for humans, but then there was one that should really weren't, whatever, it's a whole thing. And they think that if there is neurogenesis in the brain, then they think that having less neurogenesis has to do with maybe depression, or it would have to do with Alzheimer's, right? Because
the disorder problem.
Yeah, so you have some problems if you don't have enough. And then exercise could stimulate neurogenesis.
Oh, I heard this on a podcast, the Neural, whatever, I forgot the name of your podcast.
Neuron Air.
Thank you, damn it, Neuron Air podcast.
Yeah. So, if that's not true, right, then there's just like tons and tons of labs that are out of business, right? So people have a lot of faith on this information.
I did Google it, and it is right that your brain does not regenerate.
So all the cells in your body are new, but those aren't. Thanks, Vsauce.
Yeah, and I mean, so your whole nervous system does not turn over. Your peripheral nerves can regrow.
Okay, but not the central nervous?
Yeah, but not with the central nervous system. So, like, it takes a long time, but they can. So, if you have some mild nerve damage from whatever, then that can come back.
Didn't know this. Huh. Interesting stats.
Yeah.
This is the stuff let's give real quick a memory plus, a memory minus. This one's real easy. This one isn't super stat related. Detriments to memory in general. Short term, long term, all term, spatial. Stress, lack of B12, no sleep, drugs and infections. Bad. We can all agree on that? Mm-hmm. We agree on that here at Panders. Memory, as I chug drugs and almost infections, and don't go to sleep right now when I was told to go to sleep like 20 minutes ago. Memory pluses. I have a plus on my piece of paper. Exercise. Physical exercise doesn't make sense, but we'll come back to it. Mentally active. Socialize regularly. Like do a podcast. Sounds like it's
a good idea.
And diet. Balance. A balance.
Dieting?
Diet in parentheses. Balance.
Nutrition.
Thank you. But maybe someone here can tell us how exercise could actually physically help your memory, because I'm not saying it.
Well, that's what I was telling you about with the hippocampus, right? So they think that exercise can help promote the secretion of this molecule called BDNF, so brain-derived neurotropic factor.
Big friggin' deal. Big deal, friggin'. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm just coming up with all these acronyms in my head now that I'm not going to say. So,
she's thinking about big something.
I'm thinking of big dicks and fucking.
Oh yeah, I think I missed the obvious one there.
Anyway, so there's exercise. They think promotes the secretion of this factor, right? Which then is potent for stimulating this neurogenesis, so the generation of these new neurons. And having more neurons in the hippocampus seems to help with memory. So now, you have some more neurons, right, to create new memories, and you also have more neurons that could help with, going back to like an hour ago, these neural ensembles, right? So, and they also help with pattern separation. So if you, the hippocampus has a large role in discriminating between two similar things. And as we get older, it's tougher to discriminate between, let's say, like one kind of apple versus another, right? Like a picture of one. So if you're presented with a whole bunch of flashcards of different objects, right? Younger people will be able to differentiate between two similar things better than older people.
What Dan said earlier, I guess, almost like so we have a word for apple, we have a symbol for apple. Like, mm-hmm. As you're younger, you might not have that symbol so ingrained in your brain. I mean, you say apple when you're 1.5 years old, 2.5 years old. You think, this is an apple? Is this an apple? Yeah, it's a friggin' apple. It's green. Yeah, it's friggin', this one's got a friggin' shiny spot. Yeah, this one's got a friggin' stem. Like, if you're from New York, sorry.
Yeah.
You say, like, yeah, they're all different. But are they? As an adult, we've come to make shortcuts so that this is our apple ideal. This is our whatever ideal. This is our idea of this.
Yeah.
Just, boom, we move on. It's quicker. So we don't have to. So we probably don't recognize the differences. Makes sense.
But having more neurons in the campus also gives you more neurons to participate in this pattern separation. So if you have more of these different groups of neurons, right, then you have more opportunity to be able to differentiate, right? So if you have more of this neurogenesis, then it could help with learning. So exercise will lead to more neurons, which leads to better pattern separation and better learning and things like that.
Now, when you exercise, you also can release serotonin? Is that the one?
You release a lot of stuff. Okay. I mean, there's serotonin. I mean, there could be dopamine, right, which is involved with reward. Okay.
What I noticed that is a fact of life with heavier people don't want to work out of shape people, because you're heavier. It's harder to work out. You probably get less dopamines and serotonin from working out. Your brain doesn't like it. Your body doesn't like it. It's harder to work out because you're physically heavier and your body's not used to it. The more in shape you become, would you say you release more dopamine and serotonin? Excuse me. And you have receptors that
or your
are more
body
receptive
feels
to
it better because it's a smaller mass.
I don't know. I was really being curious. I have no idea.
I really don't know. That's not my area of expertise to comment on in an intelligent fashion.
I was just questioning.
I mean, my guess is that, if
it's a feedback loop, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of psychology that goes into working out as well, and it's physically harder, right? You're not used to it. Your body's not conditioned to it, so there's this huge activation energy to even, start. And then, like your body hurts, you might feel judged. I mean, I don't know.
So all in all, what we're saying is,
get out there and exercise.
Get out there and exercise. The other thing is, I believe I've read several studies that say sex feels better when you're in better shape. Right? Like people who are obese and orgasm. I hate to use that term. I don't like it.
Yeah, sure. You want to say it again? You want to say it again? Go ahead. Go ahead, Nick.
They actually receive less pleasure from orgasming because their body's not in shape. It doesn't feel as good. Versus someone who's like totally jacked and they get off, they feel like. And I think it's somewhat related. I don't know that it is. I'm just saying it might be. That's all I'm saying.
You do a study. You want to be a part of the study?
I do. I've gained 15 to 20 pounds. Well, I've gained 15 pounds of my son weight. I eat all his food that he never eats because I have to order it, and he doesn't eat it anyway. And then I eat my food. And I paid for the food, so I'm going to eat all my food. Okay? So I'm not Mr. Rich. I got to eat all that food. Right. I call it dad weight. And then if we go somewhere and he wants something and I make it, and he doesn't eat the whole thing, I got to eat it because somebody made that. Namely, me. Okay? So I've gained like 15, 20 pounds. I think I'm going to lose it and start having sex, folks.
Keep a log.
Yeah.
Right after. Go fall asleep.
You got to give your girlfriend a survey.
My girlfriend about this.
How good do you think that actually felt? 1 to 10? 1 to 10? Is that like a 9? I'll write in my book.
Anyway, that's where we're going to have to end this discussion.
Yeah,
and
a good song.
We're going to finish up memory, folks. We're going to finish up memory. Is there anything else anyone didn't bring up that they would like to bring into the light here?
No.
Just bring it into the damn light, because I had a couple drinks.
There's only one, but it's going to be really short. Genetic memory. So a game like Assassin's Creed.
Totally your sex game.
Yeah, Assassin's Creed talks about how you encode it into your own genes so that you remember kind of like a nature versus nurture.
I thought that was kind of bullshit.
It does seem like bullshit, but it is interesting. Without any input, would you be able to navigate the world and understand it?
So hold on. For the podcast, if I was, my great-grandfather was a sailor, my grandfather was a sailor, my great-great-great-grandfather was a sailor.
And you played Sea of Thieves. Yep.
I played Sea of Thieves. But my father was not a sailor, and he never taught me about sailing. And I suddenly somehow found myself at the helm of a ship. Could I sail better than the average person? What do you think the answer is? I have no idea.
Probably not, but maybe.
Yeah. I think not, but maybe. I don't know.
I mean, instinct is like evolution, right? So that's not quite memory. But there are also, I guess the closest thing you can get to genetic memory is something called epigenetics.
Ooh.
And your environment can change your DNA. It won't change the genes, but it's going to change the markers on
the way they're
DNA.
Expressed, right?
Yes, exactly. So
I don't know about this.
And
it's like Scott Kelly. Scott Kelly was up in space for a long time, and they said that his genes expressed differently than his twin brother on Earth.
I think that had a lot to do with the gamma and shit up there.
And
his spine wasn't compressed by gravity. It was weird. That's crazy what he did, but God bless him.
Yeah, and then there's, I think, increasing evidence that you can pass this kind of thing along to your offspring. I mean, obviously, those changes have to be made in your sperm and eggs, right, to get passed down, but...
Sure, one would assume.
So,
My sperm, someone else's eggs.
Yeah.
Your own
I
egg.
hope.
Egg. All right.
Just bought a dozen today. I buy free-range eggs, folks. For the podcast, I'm a
eat enough,
free-range
right?
egger.
Maybe it'll happen. Just keep eating eggs.
Cross
Oh,
those
thank you.
barriers, Nick. Cross
He said
those
keep
barriers.
Eating out. And I was like, yeah, I guess. I was like, wow. Either way, I will keep eating out often, but not too often because that's expensive. And I will keep eating eggs. So we'll see.
All right. So that covers everything I have.
Everyone, my whole sheet, top to bottom.
Yeah, that's it. That's all we got.
That's it, folks.
Been
I
fun.
hope you remembered to check out the Unpanders. I hope
Joanna
you
from
remembered
Neuron
to
Air.
check out the Neuron Air. I said it right that time. Thanks to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything you'd like to add, Joanna?
Yeah.
To this podcast?
No, man, I had a fun time. This was a great discussion. It was fun.
I hated it too. I'm really sorry about that. Moving on, I will say.
I won't remember this anyway. It really wasn't that important. So.
Oh, last question. Oh my god. Do you guys think the brain is fractal in surface area?
Fractal.
You guys do fractals in math? Like it keeps folding in and like
Right, but
forming-
in surface area, what are you talking about?
Well, like I feel like it has more surface area than anything else. Like that's why it's crinkled and folded in. And
Oh, well, the surface area is.
is that important? I have no idea.
Something.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the surface area of the brain. Is it 1 square meter?
I didn't come across that. I literally just thought this up.
It's not a fractal, but it's folded so it could fit more. So the neocortex, right, that you were talking about, that's only like on average 2 millimeters thick, maybe 2.5.
Yeah.
It's only like twice the thickness of a mouse neocortex. But there's a lot more of it, obviously. There's a lot more surface area, and it's all folded on itself, so you can pack a lot more in there. Which then also gives you more opportunity for different kinds of connections, right? Because they're all kind of like folded in on each other.
Right.
So maybe fractals. Maybe.
So I'm right. Nick at the Unpander. Wow. Write it down, folks.
We'll take it.
Anyway, folks, everyone listening at home, I know you're waiting for this, but we all like you. We like you
a lot.
Thanks for tuning in. Next week, we're going to talk about the opposite of the brain.
Good night.
What, the other brain?
Yep.